Greetings and peace, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to begin this with the Fatimiyya Sufi order greeting of Nur Alaikum and Bismillah. Today, I have the honor and privilege of being joined by my Fatimiyya brother, Stephan Beyer, who is joining us for part four in the series of dialogues and conversations that we always benefit from. And I always appreciate Brother Stephen's wisdom, his insights, and the way that he sees the world and how we can all take knowledge and appreciation from those aspects of wisdom. And today he wanted to talk about Jordan Peterson and certain elements related to Jordan Peterson. So without further ado, welcome and Nur alaikum, Brother Stephen.
Nur alaikum. Thank you. So Jordan Peterson is a topic I think has already been addressed a bit by Sheikh Wahid Azal in the past. However, some of his new things have been catching my eye lately. And I don't like to give too much attention to people who are misguided. It can be entrapping when someone is confused and they can draw people down the path of confusion. But my hope is that when I show some of the problems with the good cop, bad cop manipulation of polarization and how it ends up actually supporting the establishment, that sometimes these outside voices can be well, Peterson wanted to sort of portray himself as an outside voice for the last couple years, though he seems to have done a bit of a turnaround. He's going into the Daily Wire, and there was what I thought was a rather bafflingly self-cancelship that he recently pulled, where he got a post censored by Twitter, which apparently isn't very hard these days, but he decided to double down on things sort of in this way we've seen a lot for publicity. And he very shortly after started this new leaf with semi-sympathetic posts about the Russian conflict, and also this really strange reaching out to Muslims. This has a very patronizing element, condescending element to anyone who's actually, I don't know if you have to view the entire video where he says this message, but he basically tells Sunnis and Shia they can stop fighting, and they need to learn to talk to each other, which he then suggests that they should have a pen pal, maybe a Christian, or, oh my God, a Jew. That was his emphasis. He really put the emphasis on that it would, which I thought was very arrogant and condescending, as if Christianity never had an anti-Semitism problem, and as if the current situation in Palestine was the fault of Palestinians. I thought that this was a really amazing message from him, and sort of showed a normalization of white supremacy that we feel that we can lecture you, or he, in this case. It just have to say that the angle that he's been going on this last couple weeks seems to have embracing right-wing politics. He's gone from somebody who's been willing to criticize the right and the left to somebody who's celebrating the right wing, which, considering some of the things that we are learning in America about what the right wing is willing to do for victory can be a little bit problematic, I fear. So
Yeah, that's absolutely right, brother Stephen. And see, when you look at a lot of these guys that have like a huge backing, huge influence, and they have a huge audience, there's always some kind of a compromising element that's involved. And when you look into the eyes of a person like that, and you just see that there's just something behind there. You could just look at his eyes and look at the eyes of so many people who come from that field, and you could just tell that there's something else that's operating that influence. So, that arrogance and condescending attitude, and how basically you have this person that just comes out of nowhere these last few years and just is doing what he's doing. And that's the thing. A lot of the right wing, they appreciate him. Oh, he's making us feel appreciated. We need to take our power back, and just so many things which kind of promote those hidden agendas, like you said, but by covering it with a nice topping, so everything seems nice and accepting, but deep down inside there's an agenda, and there's something that's being promoted, or there's certain aspects that are being put against each other. Even how they address women in a lot of these conversations in groups. So him addressing Muslims is something that is something new, a new a tactic that's being used from that crowd. But like you said, that element is still there. You cannot deny that.
he, about the same time, he also had a message to churches. So he had the message to churches also was a little bit bizarre. And apparently, he feels that the reason why churches aren't doing well in the West is, um, I guess they're not patriarchal enough. I'm joking here, I'm misquoting him, but he basically, from that video, what he's saying is that men have become oppressed, and if churches make themselves a safe place for men, they will experience growth and revitalization. Combining this with his other message to Muslims, and his messages about Russia and Ukraine, um, which there's some stuff he said that I agree with, but there's also that twist that puts it where he puts in the danger, where the way I see it is we have almost, I guess he's Canadian, but he still kind of projects an American exceptionalism. um, where the thing that he complains about is, America is too woke and we're getting a little bit too crazy by caring too much about African Americans and females and them having too much of a voice. Um, which procedurally, there may be some issues with how Biden chose who he chose, but I think it's just laughable to think that America has a problem because black people and women have too much power. That's not what
Well, see,
America's problem is.
that's the thing, brother Stephen. He appeals to that right wing mindset and that right wing mentality, and that's basically in America been his bread and butter. Whether it's his shows or his books, anything like that, is majority of it's consumed by a right wing audience. And the concept of what you see in the Handmaid's Tales and other things where women are put in their place and men take their power. This is what this guy is promoting. And like I tell people, a lot of these people in these truth and conscious communities or spiritual communities, I recently had an experience dealing with somebody like that. A lot of them, 90% of the time, are compromised. They're intelligence assets, or they're wolves in sheep's clothing. But there's always an agenda behind that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that kind of a large scale or audience.
There is something to that. One of my rules for identifying fake news is the system only gives attention to itself.
Yeah,
And Peterson does seem to get a lot of attention. I almost
exactly.
feel bad that we're talking to him because I generally favor disassociation from people who are stuck in this mode. There's not much to talk about.
Right.
However, he's got enough influence and he's manipulative enough that I think there are a lot of the system and the way the good cop, bad cop goes, I think has created some problems for the American working class and from some liberal working people in America. I've actually seen some people who I would have thought of as natural allies for leftist causes
Right.
who are a little bit paying more attention to this guy than I think they ought to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so some of the games that I've noticed he's playing, um, and this also has to do with, I think, problems where, the things I look to the left to really raise the standard on, it's not doing those issues. So like for peace and for caring about the environment and for caring about the workers, those are issues we need a functional left for. I think America's left is manipulated in part from the military industrial complex. So it embraces this good cop, bad cop superficiality. We get a left that ends up being just like the right, focused on military recruitment, just doesn't always agree on it, doesn't always agree to admit it. So what I mean by that is you get well, some of the headlines recently are against any criticism of America's support for Ukraine. And I support the people of Ukraine and think that they have the right to determine if they want to resist. What I really am afraid of them is being in a commercial where they get high-priced toys that the military-industrial complex sells, and they're stuck in a stalemate for years where the West's interest is in showcasing its toys, not in actually getting these people security. And so this the left wing in this country isn't focusing on actually bringing peace to Ukraine. I think it's similarly, because it's part of NATO, stuck in this we want stalemate indefinitely and proxy war forever. That being said, the reactionary, ethnocentric, and xenophobia on our right wing is many, many times worse. And, they flat out say they're anti-communist. They're afraid of equality in a lot of ways. You see things where, Jordan Peterson, in the middle of this video about Russia, he spent 20 minutes complaining about we gave an African-American woman a Supreme Court seat. It seems to me out of place. You can have the criticism of how America is using Ukraine without primarily throwing candy to people who have fears about African American or women on the Supreme Court. You can complain about the procedure of how things were selected without really, at this point, his audience seems like it is transphobic, getting more transphobic. And I think there's problems with the way that America deals with this. Is the solution more transphobia, more homophobia? I have a hard time saying that that solves anything or has anything good at all. You can say that there's something in our establishment that's manipulative and problematic, but it really should not translate to what we are seeing him lay the groundwork for. He's sort of laid the groundwork for, and this is really strange because he contradicts himself in a video where he complains about the law of non-contradiction. So what I mean by that is he says that it's okay for adults if they want to transition to do a transition, but the post that he himself posted to sort of create his self-cancelization was about saying that a surgeon who performed a surgery on an adult was criminal. So this is an odd bait and switch. He starts off getting attention by what an adult actor in transition from being an actress does surgically, and he's trying to then appeal to Christian churches to be a male-centered place, and then he simultaneously reaches out to Muslims, and it seems like he wants people of faith to be stuck in this right-wing, left-wing paradigm where the people of faith mostly provide political capital for the status quo, sort of capitalism normative, as if capitalism is doing that great at providing for people's needs. As if, he sort of points out that there's some insanity with certain elements of being woke in an odd way, and how it's inconsistent. This hardly seems to, if somebody has an insane level of, I don't know, wants 8-year-olds to transition. Yeah, I think that's very strange. But it goes, it's very, it almost seems like he's looking at France with its secularism and using that as sort of a false dichotomy and trying to, by posting up that, which is hardly normal in America or Canada, as the new normal, that he can therefore get Muslims or Christians to celebrate sort of this NATO normative capitalism plus, yeah. So to the Muslims of the world, what we want you to do is embrace your right-wingness so that, when you see the left wing in America doing something insane, you embrace the right wing that's actually kind of oppressed you. And when I say kind of, I mean blatantly. So that's the thing that I'm trying to
That
sort
that's
out here.
that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right, brother Stephen. And if you look at the aspect of the neoliberalism here in America, and if it was really about helping people and equality, you just have 10% of the U.S. military budget could solve so many issues in this country: lack of education, some of the schools that are suffering, children's programs, women's programs, social services, health services, homelessness, education, you name it. So many issues that the people are suffering here, A to Z. So just like the Afghanistan war, they spent what, two $2.2 trillion over there, and that place is suffering now because of what the U.S. did there for the last 20 plus years.
Oh
They
yeah,
came.
that was money well spent, right?
I mean,
um,
what did they get out of that besides just selling weapons and making money, and people on both sides, American and Afghan, suffering? And at the end, what did anybody get out of it? Nothing. So
there's a
that's the thing about these
paradox
people.
here, and part of the paradox with America's financial system is it is the goal of our system for our people to be in debt and eager to. So it's called the Triffin paradox. So basically, the situation is that in order to have a world reserve currency, you need to print money so that other nations use your currency, and you need to dump that money on those other countries so they're using your currency to buy and sell. So
Right.
it's really critical for America that other countries, particularly in the Middle East, do their buying and selling in dollars. If you look at what America's afraid of, it's don't you sell things in euros. So oil sales are supposed to be in dollars and other mining, big things for resources. So America does some bizarre things. We dump our money on other countries' establishments, and we keep our people poor. The idea is the poor people in America have to be desperate enough to work. They have to be desperate enough to be willing to join the military.
Yes.
If the military isn't a path out of desperation, your country is in collapse mode with the way our thinkers think. They are very much um, connected to this East versus West nation building through nation breaking of proxy war. And this is, without looking at the proxy war system, I don't think you can diagnose um, Peterson's manipulation. So, how the
Yeah.
proxy war element comes in here is obviously America for a while had been behind trying to get Shia and Sunni to fight more. We seem to be downplaying this right now, but during the Syrian civil war, anything that, you know, you can see it in that Made of Heaven movie that the English filmmaker produced,
Yeah.
where um, even no, basically nobody likes that movie. There's an audience of zero for it. Um, but for a while, the West was trying to get Sunnis and Shia to fight each other more, and now, in some ways, this conflict we're trying to de-emphasize that conflict. It didn't go necessarily the way the West wanted. Syria didn't fall. Yemen wasn't a short victorious war like it was supposed to be. So the new proxy war is between the US and Russia and Ukraine. The one thing that I think Peterson gets hilariously right is that we don't care about Ukraine, as in the system of the West really does not care that much about Ukraine. And this is one of the things that really bothers me is you notice this refugee crisis, and I feel like we are cynically ignoring the real problem. There was a predictable, um, a slow motion catastrophe here. The West seems to be eager to try and get people who are potentially willing to volunteer to be a part of this. I would urge people, if they do volunteer, help the refugee, help the people who are suffering. Getting engaged directly in the conflict has a host of problematic issues. This is not something that freedom fighters are going to solve on their own. NATO is, playing with a trap here and using it very manipulatively and trying to profit off of a catastrophe. But that being said, the proxy war element, trying to get Muslims to fight for free, trying to get Christians to view this conflict as their conflict. Proxy war is a huge part of how the West fights. And Jordan Peterson, maybe it's just savvy business sense, but he seems to get a lot of free publicity where I have a hard time thinking of him as just someone with a handler. He seems like he's one of the handlers himself.
That's right. That's right.
He's
And
a lot like Dugan, but for the West.
absolutely, brother Stephen. And you hit the nail right on the head because if you look at some of his manipulation and how he appeals to the right wing in America or to the concept of white supremacy that women need to know their place, men need to know their place, and everybody needs to be put in their place. And we see this even in the Iraq War, where they promoted sectarian violence and conflict between Sunnis and Shias. So that this is something that's been going on for a while, and a lot of these people that have this kind of reach or influence, you best believe that there's somebody or something that's either handling them, or like you said, they are the handler their own self. So that's what we're seeing right now in this country, that it's getting more polarized day by day, with gender, with religion, with how people view each other. And I agree with Sheikh Wahid's analysis that at this point, humanity is too far gone, and we need some kind of a divine intervention for us to just come together. People don't want to deal with anybody that doesn't look like them, speak like them, that doesn't come from the same background. Everyone's kind of stuck in their own tribal mindsets, and then we have people like this who come and actually enforce that. It's like how Dugan says that, oh, if you're a certain color, you stay in your country with your people. So these people are not promoting unity of any kind, and that's what I tell people. Anyone that's not promoting true human unity, you got to watch out, because that person has an agenda. And of course, you a lot of these people are psychological manipulators, and they have training and experience in psychological warfare. So they're doing what they're doing, and it's all self-evident in front of us of who these people are. And I tell people, just look, just even if you look at their picture, just look at their eyes, you'll see all the darkness right there, and they'll give you the common sense to avoid people like that in these so-called truth and conscious or spiritual communities. Because if it was anything that was to benefit humanity, they wouldn't let that person have that kind of reach or influence.
There is something definitely to that. I'm getting more and more into the so there's a concept I've gotten from occultism that humanity doesn't always create things. It tricks itself into thinking that it created something. That basically all of our um, ideas come from either the light or the darkness.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know if that's completely how I view. I mean, sometimes I think I do come up with my own ideas, but at the same time, I can often sort of trace how I got to my ideas and realize what came before them and see that I was influenced by something of one source or the other. But there does seem to definitely be something to the case that when somebody is anti-truth, they're completely anti-truth, point for point, one right after another. Um, the more I look at Jordan Peterson in the last couple weeks in what he's been doing, the more he's. It almost looks like he's not a wolf in sheep's clothing at this point. At this point, it almost looks like he's a sheep in wolf or a um, a sheep in wolf's clothing. What I
Yeah.
mean by that is that the passive aggressiveness has now gotten to the point where he's not even hiding that he's doing it. Like he's being, yeah, I would say that he's a sheep in wolf's clothing at this point.
That's probably a better way to analyze that, and that's exactly what I've been seeing and watching as well, on how this concept where this Canadian person just comes out of nowhere, and he's just making waves and waves and just doing what he's doing, and I knew that was a red flag for me right then and there. And I never watched any Jordan Peterson video or listened to him in any way,
Well,
but
congratulations on that.
yeah, and on top of that, because I was able to pick up intuitively on what he was saying and what I was hearing from people, and I kind of just put that two and two together, and I realized, okay, you know what? He's just another one of those in a long line of people mastered in this craft of psychological warfare that are there to shape people's opinions, put one party against the other, and promote certain ideas and mindsets. And yeah, that's exactly who he is. And he's just one of many that are just doing what they're doing right now, and adding to the polarization that's already getting worse.
So I come from the Chicago area. In Illinois, I like to think of as ground zero for the bipartisan combine. I kind of so bipartisan combine was a term that used to be common in Illinois' media, though it's actually, if you search for it now, the term has largely gone out of fashion over the last few years, and most of the articles are buried. But what we basically had here in Illinois, and what got exposed and then forgotten about, was the right and the left, the Republicans and the Democrats, were deliberately running losers against each other in situations where the other side was supposed to win. They were creating increased polarization, and this created a situation where a small number of deal makers in the legislature were able to control the agenda.
Right.
And this in Illinois, I mean, it happened, and it was horrible for the people who lived here, and it was horrible for the world. It was horrible for the country, because it helped set a stage for Barack Obama to be seen as a rock star and not as a problematic former spy with a history in Operation Chaos, who had worked at Business International.
That's
If you
right.
actually look at Barack Obama's background, Business International Corporation. Well, what were you doing there? You were creating fake news. Business International Corporation was a company that worked with the CIA to produce fake news during the Cold War. What did you do after that, Mr. Obama? Well, during Operation Chaos, when the government was illegally spying on activists, Barack Obama came to Chicago to become a community organizer. Considering his background, that raises all sorts of methods and tactics issues with Operation Chaos. It's been declassified. CIA program ran at the same time and sort of overlapped with COINTELPRO, which was an FBI program that also was abusive and illegal. So with the polarization, what they were able to do is they kind of flip it around with who are the good guys, who are the bad guys every now and then. And similarly to the way the American neoliberal system has looted nations from Vietnam and Korea by dividing them, this division gets systemized. And I mean, obviously, when you look at Korea now or Vietnam now, it's hard to look at those wars as like the human cost is just staggering. It gets ridiculous, and generations later, there's still situations that are terrible. And we have a standoff. Similarly with Taiwan and Taiwan and China and now Ukraine, where there's similar division between supposedly it's authoritarian and democratic.
Right.
I sometimes wonder how much democracy we have, or if we just have enough fake news to make us believe we're democratic, because we're able to play this musical chairs style game, and the people who are the good guys, one election cycle, will be able to reinvent themselves like professional wrestlers. I, of course, am mentioning Donald Trump helping cut off Vince McMahon's hair at the hair match.
That was WrestleMania 23, right?
I believe it was.
Yes.
And I kind of want to, I'm pointing out that how these actors use this manipulation and this bipartisan combine to polarize people, where they're willing to do stupid and idiotic things, such as Jordan Peterson's recent condescending video, where apparently he seems to have forgotten that Christians ever had an issue with anti-Semitism, and is basically like he's lecturing barbarian Muslims, while at the same time offering them an invitation to join some sort of YouTube, Twitter that they're okay with, that he can then endorse, which I have to say is ridiculous.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, even if you look at a lot of these people in the Islamic community who join him, or if you look at this Imam of Peace from Australia,
Oh
a
my
lot,
God, that
lot,
guy.
lot, lot of the right wing, they promote him because he's basically validating their racism, and a lot of these people, they're not authorized by any international council or groups of imams. These people are clandestine Islamic leaders who, from what I discovered, are intelligence assets and informants who are there to basically play the part of a Muslim or a Muslim leader, and then they will espouse, oh, Islam needs to be reformed, and there are issues within Islam. We need to get those straightened out. And then they will validate all of the right wing racism and beliefs. And then the right wing people will be like, look, we have a Muslim token that agrees with us. And they will uphold him and just parade him around. So, this one guy from Australia, the Imam of Peace, that a lot of the right wing people are endorsing, and
Tweety.
there's a couple other people that are basically, they join people that are anti-Islamic, so they could all validate each other and promote their agendas.
I don't think the Tweety Bird, the Imam of Peace, I don't think he has a single Muslim friend. Oh, never mind.
No, he doesn't. He's just a right wing intelligence asset that's
But
being
he wears
used.
the hat well, right?
He does, and that's the thing. These agents of chaos, brother Stephen, you're gonna find them everywhere, and they have an agenda, and if you can spot them, there it is. And something about him was a red flag to me, right? And because I was communicating with somebody from Canada a little while ago, and this guy was a right wing racist, and he was sending me all of this stuff from the Imam of Peace, and I knew right then and there. I didn't even bother communicating further, and I blocked him.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at Tweety Bird's memes a little bit as, but everything about him basically is how to make a racist, ethnocentric individual feel comfortable in
Of
the
course,
idea that we can condescendingly criticize other cultures, that we are dividing. Remember, America helped divide Shia and Sunni because of the Syrian civil war for proxy war purposes.
that's
So
right.
the idea that you just guys need to stop being barbarians and come, be neoliberals with us. Uh,
Exactly.
wow. Um,
Well,
I mean, I shouldn't
even
even
if you
laugh
look at,
because it's so upsetting, but it's like maddening.
I mean, even if you look at people like Sam Harris, he had this Muslim token guy from England that was there endorsing his racism as well, and there were a couple other people. But you notice that there's a pattern that these right wingers will always have either a black token or a Muslim token, and then they will use those people to validate their beliefs. Like, see, look, we have a quote unquote African American person agreeing with us. We have a Muslim person agreeing with us. We have Latinos for Trump. We have this. We have that. So a lot of these people are all agents that are just helping each other promote their causes and what they're trying to do. So, and they're all actors to a certain extent. You have
Let me.
one person that could wear many hats.
So, wow, you just made a whole bunch of light bulbs go off in my head at once. I need to try and mention these before I forget them. So I have this one occult insight, and it goes on what I had mentioned earlier about how you can see if somebody's, going to be wrong point for point and all wrong. So one of the things I like to use to try and there's a concept from Kabbalah based on the shells or the peels, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I'm sure my Hebrew is terrible, but it's called like kilpathic, but it's spelled with a Q. The idea is that there's a superficialness that's the bad thing. So what I mean is the shell or the peel would be like the waste around a fruit from somebody's point of view who's collecting the sparks of goodness. So the peel or the shell is what's on the surface. I think a lot of times the division, the dark side, tries to use what's superficial
Yeah.
as the division. Oh man, what was my other point that was I was trying to build off that to my other one. Let's see, what had you just said that had sparked that? There was somewhere I was going that I may have already forgotten while I was explaining my background. Basically, that the superficialness is part of how this division is caused, and that we have there's some example about how the tokenism is constantly being used, and how white supremacy needs to hide behind a minority to do its dirty work sometimes.
There it is.
Tweety Bird is a good example of this. The example of how to use superficiality to cause division and to be a token that essentially enables right-wing xenophobia, ethnocentrism, and colonialism.
That's it.
Well,
And see, look, brother Stephen, you hit on some great points as well, because this is the same paradigm that Peterson comes from. He's appealing to the same paradigm. He's promoting the same reality. So it's an endless circle of imperialism, white supremacy, neocolonialism, hiding behind liberalism, hiding behind minorities, or other things that they're trying to do. So at the end, people just need their own discernment. They need their own common sense. And I tell people is when you're on a path of spiritual enlightenment or know thyself and all that good stuff, you got to listen to that inner voice within. And even what the Fatimiyya teaches us is that you have to have discernment on who you're following, because, I mean, just look at the majority of the people that are in these communities, in these so-called truth and conscious or occult communities. A lot of them are not good people. They have an agenda. They're being backed or financed by groups and individuals that we are not aware of. We don't know where these people came from, who groomed them, and they have such a articulate manner, their silver tongue and their personality, that they pull you in, and they're shaping those polarizations and paradigms, and continuing to put people against each other. And we don't see anybody being promoted that's telling people to love and respect each other equally. We don't have anybody like that. And a lot of these people they're just doing what they're doing, and people need to be aware of that. And I think what you have said, it's absolutely great, and people need to take heed to that. And in this time of chaos, we definitely need to educate ourselves and be involved with our local communities, see what's going on, what's being promoted, because we all have our own individual duties. Whether you're part of any religious or spiritual organization, you yourself as a human being, everyone has a claim upon you, and you vice versa to them. So try to do your best with the time that you have been given, and be mindful of these people that are promoting hatred and division. Why isn't the system promoting somebody that's telling you love and respect everyone equally, and try to make a better world together? Because they're not going to promote anybody like that. They want these people out there with a big influence that are doing what they're doing. So keep in mind with the things that Brother Stephen has said, I have said, and others who have given the same similar message.
So my
And he,
thoughts and prayers
and
are with Jordan Peterson, that he may cease to be an icon of negation and stop hurting himself. Oh, never mind. That's about my closing word on that. I don't think I can do the same for Tweety Bird. He's going to hurt himself until the end, until the day of judgment.
Oh, of course, and a lot of these people, they end up exposing themselves. I mean, recently with the one guy that I dealt with, eventually these people self-destruct on their own when they get exposed. So I think karma eventually catches up to people, So continue to be good, and good will happen to you. And thank you, Brother Stephen, for joining us for part 4. And until we do a part 5 in the future, good health, good peace, and thank you again for always gracing us with your presence and wisdom.
May light and peace be with you.
Thank you. Nur alaikum.